Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take all that complex information, the dense articles, the legal texts, the heavy research, and we break it down. We pull out what really matters and give it to you straight. So you walk away feeling confident in what you know.
And today we are trying to understand something that's really at the very core of India's identity. We're doing a deep dive into the philosophical heart of our nation, the preamble to the Constitution of India.
Exactly. And for you listening, our mission today is to really unpack that short but incredibly powerful text. This isn't just some formal introduction at the beginning of the world's longest written constitution.
Not at all.
Mhm.
It is, as our courts have said again and again, the definitive statement of what our country is all about. It's the blueprint.
Many people, especially in academic circles, call it the Preamble.
Yes, the principal document. It's the one text that summarizes the highest principles that guide our republic. And our goal is simple, really, to get the deep meaning of this text, understand where it came from, and maybe most importantly, why this short statement has such huge legal, moral, and political weight for every single one of us.
We have a great set of sources today, historical notes, landmark legal cases. We're going to trace the preamble from its birth as a resolution back in 1946 through some really fiery debates all the way to how the Supreme Court sees it today.
And when you look at it, you immediately realize it's so much more than an intro. It's the distilled essence. It's the summary of all the hopes, the dreams, and the non-negotiable values of the founders. It really is the guiding star for the entire republic.
Okay, so let's start unpacking this. Let's begin with the simplest question. If someone asks you for a one-line summary of the preamble, the preamble, what's the most straightforward way to put it?
The clearest way to say it is that it's the ultimate set of guidelines for the nation and for the Constitution itself. It tells you where the authority comes from, what the goals are, and the fundamental structure of our government. It's the spirit, the soul behind the whole document.
And that spirit, that intent, is clear from the very first line. The first few words carry such an incredible weight. Let's just read that opening because it's just the ultimate foundational statement for a new nation. We, the people of India.
That phrase, is the revolutionary heart of the whole thing. It immediately says that the authority for the Constitution doesn't come from some outside colonial power or a king or a god.
Or even just from the people who wrote it.
Exactly. The power and the legitimacy of the entire republic comes only from the people themselves.
That is such a powerful rejection of India's immediate past, isn't it? I mean, everything before that was defined by an external imperial power. So this one line puts sovereignty right into the hands of the citizens.
Precisely. It puts sovereignty squarely with the individuals who make up the nation. This idea, popular sovereignty, it sets the tone for everything that comes after it.
And this opening declaration then sets up the two main goals the preamble wants to achieve. It's like a quick snapshot of what India is trying to be.
Absolutely. The first goal is all about what the new republic will be. It's the promise to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. These 5 words define the nature of the state we chose.
And the second goal moves from defining the state to defining the citizen's relationship with it. It's about rights and promises.
Right. It's to secure for all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. These 4 are the fundamental guarantees, the values that the state promises to deliver and protect for every single person.
It's a really profound promise, all packed into one short text. Now, we should also be clear about the timeline here. This wasn't just adopted overnight.
No, not at all. The formal adoption by the Constituent Assembly happened on the 26th of November, 1949.
Which we now celebrate as Constitution Day, or Samvitan Divas.
Yes. But even though it was adopted, the whole thing didn't come into force immediately. That took another couple of months.
That's right. The actual commencement date, when the Constitution came into full operation and India became a fully self-governing republic, that was the 26th of January, 1950.
Republic Day?
Republic Day. And that 2-month delay was a deliberate choice, wasn't it? That date, January 26th, had a deep connection to the freedom struggle.
Oh, very deep connection. The choice of that date goes back to 1930. On that day, the Indian National Congress declared Purna Swaraj, or complete self-rule, as its goal. So by starting the Constitution on that same date, the founders were linking the new legal framework directly to that revolutionary promise made decades earlier. It was a powerful act of symbolism.
That historical link is fascinating. But to really get the preamble, we have to go back even further, right? Back to the very first spark of this idea. Our sources point to the objectives resolution.
Indeed. The preamble didn't just appear fully formed. It's the final, polished version of a long philosophical and political discussion that started right at the beginning of the Constituent Assembly's work.
And this visionary document, the Objectives Resolution, it was moved by Jawaharlal Nehru. When did he introduce it?
Nehru moved it in the Assembly on the 13th of December, 1946. This was just a few days after the Assembly first met. He understood that they needed to immediately define the philosophy, the guiding principles for the huge task ahead of them.
So he introduces it in mid-December 46, and it's then debated and formally accepted by the Assembly on 22nd January 1947.
Correct. So the preamble that we read today is directly based on the content and spirit of that objectives resolution. It shows a clear historical line for every single ideal in the preamble.
But the journey from that resolution to the final text was, well, it was full of conflict. This wasn't some quiet academic exercise. This was a battle for the soul of the nation. I like to call it the drafting room drama.
Absolutely. The clashes of ideology were intense. They reflected the global pressures of the post-war era. One of the biggest debates was about the very name and nature of the republic.
You're talking about the argument to rename India the Union of Indian Socialistic Republics. That sounds almost exactly like the USSR.
It was a direct ideological challenge. The proposal was seriously put forward by members who believed that a Soviet-style state control of the economy was the only way to quickly get rid of poverty and historical exploitation.
So why didn't that pass? What was the counter-argument?
Well, ultimately, most of the members were just deeply uncomfortable with imitating a foreign totalitarian system. They were committed to a unique Indian path, one that combined economic justice with political freedom and democracy, so they rejected the Socialistic Republic's title.
They wanted the social goals, but they wanted to achieve them through democratic means.
Exactly. And that tension wasn't just about political systems. There was an incredibly fierce debate about including the names of God and Gandhi in the preamble.
The idea of including God in a country as spiritual as India, you'd think that would be a natural fit. But our sources say it was highly contentious.
It was explicitly voted out. The motion to include in the name of God failed, with 68 members voting against it. The winning argument was that the Constitution had to be a purely legal, secular document that was binding on everyone, regardless of their personal faith, including those who had no faith.
Wow, that's a remarkable statement of secularism right at the beginning. And the reaction to the vote was pretty dramatic.
It was. The member who moved the amendment, Hari Vishnu Kamath, was apparently very upset. When the motion failed, he stood up and declared, "This, sir, is a black day in our annals. God save India."
That really captures the stakes, doesn't it? It wasn't just a legal choice, it was an existential one. And the secular rationalist view won.
A similar debate happened around Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, obviously, everyone recognized his huge contribution, so there was a proposal to include his name.
And yet, that too was met with some really sharp disapproval.
Yes, most notably from a member named Burjeshwar Prasad. His objection was about ideological purity. He felt the constitution they were creating, with its structure based on the old Government of India Act and American legal ideas, was not really aligned with Gandhi's philosophy of village-based, decentralized governance.
So his argument was that putting Gandhi's name on a constitution that wasn't truly Gandhian would be, what, hypocritical?
Exactly that. Prasad felt that dragging Gandhi's name into what he called a rotten constitution would be a disservice to his memory. He was completely against what he saw as just tokenism.
His exact words are really quite sharp.
They are. He said, "I do not want that the name of Mahatma Gandhi should be incorporated in this constitution because it is not a Gandhian constitution. I do not want that the name of Mahatma Gandhi should be dragged in the rotten constitution." It's an amazing insight into the intense debates that were happening.
It's so important to remember that the Preamble wasn't a product of easy consensus. It was forged in passionate disagreement.
Absolutely. And, moving from the text to the physical document itself, the original handwritten Constitution is a genuine work of art.
Right. The craftsmanship on the Preamble page is something special. Who are the artists behind it?
The Preamble page was designed and decorated by the painter Bihar Ramanohar Sinha of Jabalpur. He was working under the guidance of the great Acharya Nandalal Bose at Shantiniketan.
And the calligraphy, the beautiful flowing text.
That was done by Prem Bahari Narain Raizada, who used a beautiful italic style. So you have this soaring legal philosophy encased in equally dignified art.
That historical context is magnificent. But now we have to get to its practical power. Why should a citizen care about the Preamble today? I mean, in a court of law, does this text actually have any authority? Can you use it to challenge a law?
This is the critical question. And the preamble's legal weight wasn't fixed from day one. It evolved dramatically over decades thanks to the Supreme Court.
And at first, the court took a surprisingly limited view of it, didn't it? That brings us to the Barubari case in 1960.
Correct. The Brewberry Union case came up because of the need to transfer some territory to what was then East Pakistan. The question was whether Parliament could just do that with an ordinary law.
And in figuring that out, what did the Supreme Court say about the preamble itself?
In the Brewberry case, the court initially concluded that the preamble was not an integral part of the Constitution. Their reasoning was that since it was adopted after the main articles were passed, it wasn't a formal, enforceable part. They saw it as just a key to the minds of the makers.
So, useful for understanding intent, but not a legal weapon you could use in court. A guiding lamp, but not a hammer.
Exactly. But that restrictive view completely changed in 1973. This is the judicial revolution of the Kesavananda Harati case. It redefined our entire constitutional landscape.
This case is the big one. It reset the power dynamic completely. So what was the court's ruling on the preamble this time?
The court explicitly overruled its earlier decision in Barubari. It recognized that the preamble is indeed part of the Constitution. And even more critically, it was identified as containing the essence of the basic structure of the Constitution.
The basic structure doctrine. This is everything in Indian constitutional law. Let's really drill down on this. What does it mean for the preamble to contain the basic structure?
It means that the preamble becomes the ultimate lens through which the Supreme Court can judge any constitutional amendment passed by Parliament. The goals listed in it, sovereignty, democracy, secularism, justice, they are now legally recognized as non-negotiable foundations.
So Parliament can amend the Constitution, but it can't destroy its core identity as laid out in the preamble.
That is the crucial implication. You can amend it under Article 368, but its basic structure cannot be destroyed or altered. Parliament cannot, for example, pass an amendment saying India is no longer a democracy. The preamble stands as a constitutional checkmate.
That is huge. It ensures that no matter how big a political majority is, the foundational values can't just be voted away.
And this status was cemented again later in 1995 in the Union Government versus LIC of India case. The Supreme Court firmly held again that the preamble is an integral part of the Constitution, often calling it the heart and soul of the Constitution.
Okay, so with its legal status now protected, we get to the one and only time the text itself was amended. This happened during a very tumultuous period in our history.
That's right. The only amendment happened on 18th December 1976, right in the middle of the emergency under Indira Gandhi's government. It was part of the huge 42nd Amendment Act.
And this amendment added 3 specific concepts. What were they?
2 very important ideological words were inserted. Between sovereign and democratic, they added socialist and secular.
Now, as we said, the Constitution already had socialist and secular ideas in it, but this made them explicit characteristics of the state itself.
Precisely. And there was a third change, too. The phrase unity of the nation was changed to unity and integrity of the nation. This small addition was meant to strengthen the idea of India's indivisibility.
And that addition of secular in 1976 was later fully validated by the courts, right? We have to mention the S.R. Bomai case from 1994.
Yes, the Bomai case is crucial. The Supreme Court held that secularism, the word inserted in 76, was not just a policy, but a fundamental part of the basic structure. So even if a future parliament wanted to remove the word, the underlying commitment to religious neutrality would remain an untouchable part of our republic.
Okay, that journey establishes the preamble's unshakable legal foundation. Now let's get to the meaning of the words themselves. These 9 objectives aren't just legal terms. They shape the thinking and decisions in our daily lives.
Exactly. Understanding these is essential because they are the frame of reference for almost every government policy, every major court ruling, and every social movement in India.
So let's start with the first one, sovereign. What does that actually mean in practical terms?
Sovereign means absolute independent authority. It means India is the supreme power within its territory. It can legislate on any subject, and it's not subject to the control of any outside power.
It's the declaration of political independence. But it has 2 sides, right? External and internal.
It does. External sovereignty is about our relationship with other countries. We can manage our foreign policy, sign treaties, acquire territory, all as an independent nation. And internal sovereignty is about the relationship between the state and the people. This supreme power is divided between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, but it all flows from we the people.
Moving on to the second pillar, socialist, added in 1976. As we discussed, the Indian brand of socialism is unique.
Very unique. It's fundamentally social democracy. It's about achieving socialist goals, like equality and justice, through democratic and nonviolent means.
So what does this practically promise citizens?
It's rooted in distributive justice, the idea that since wealth is created by society, it should be shared fairly by society. So the government has the mandate to regulate industry and land to reduce huge economic inequalities. It's about preventing wealth from getting concentrated in just a few hands.
And this idea was there from the beginning, even before the word was added.
Yes, absolutely. The directive principles of state policy, like Article 39, were already deeply socialist in their content. The 1976 amendment just made it explicit.
Okay, now the third term, secular. This is maybe the most debated term today, and the Indian definition is different from the Western one.
It is a crucial difference. In India, it means the state must be neutral towards all religions. It's often called principled distance. The state doesn't have its own religion, but it can interact with religious groups to ensure social justice.
So what does that neutrality mean for me if I'm practicing my faith?
It means equal respect for all religions. Sarva Dharma Sambhava. Whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, or an atheist, the state must treat you equally. You have the fundamental right to profess, practice, and propagate your religion freely.
And as we said, the S.R. Bommai case made this an unchangeable part of our Constitution.
Yes, an essential part of the basic structure. It's legally unassailable.
All right, let's look at the next two terms that define our political machinery, democratic and republic.
Democratic defines our system of governance by representatives of the people. And this is put into practice through universal adult franchise.
One person, one vote.
One person, one vote. Every citizen who is 18 or older has the right to vote and choose their representatives.
But the word democratic here means more than just voting, doesn't it?
It does. It refers not just to political democracy, but also to social and economic democracy. The promise is that the system must work to improve the social and economic lives of the people, not just give them a ballot every 5 years. The ultimate goal is to save them from tyrant rulers.
And that idea was legally confirmed in the Mohanlal Tripathi case.
Yes, the court said that democracy is a profound political philosophy, an ideal that we practice through representative governance.
And finally, republic. This word is what makes us different from many other Commonwealth nations.
A republic, quite simply, means our head of state is elected, not a hereditary monarch. Our president is indirectly elected for a fixed term.
Yeah.
But the core feature is the absence of any privileged class. All public offices are open to every citizen without discrimination.
Okay, so those 5 terms define the state structure. Now for the last 4, which are the goals for the citizens, let's start with justice.
Justice, in the Preamble, stands for the rule of law and equal rights for all. And it seeks justice in 3 interconnected ways.
Let's break those down. First, social justice.
Social justice means working to eliminate socially privileged classes. No discrimination based on caste, creed, religion, gender, anything. It's about actively correcting historical injustices to achieve true social equality.
And that leads to economic justice.
Economic justice means ensuring that wealth and income don't become tools for discrimination. It mandates fair distribution of wealth, breaking up monopolies, and giving everyone adequate opportunities to earn a living.
And finally, political justice.
Political justice is about giving equal political rights to all. The right to vote, the right to contest elections, the right to hold public office. It guarantees that every person's political voice carries equal weight.
And these 3 are all linked, aren't they? You can't really have one without the others.
Precisely. As Dr. Ambedkar said, political democracy cannot last unless it is based on social democracy.
Next up, liberty. What specific freedoms does the preamble promise?
Liberty here means freedom of activity, without unreasonable restrictions. The preamble lists them: liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. These are the core freedoms that allow a person to flourish.
But there's a very important catch here, which people often forget.
A crucial one. Liberty does not mean license to do whatever you want. It must be exercised within the constitutional limits. Your freedom of expression cannot become hate speech or incite violence. It's freedom balanced with responsibility.
A vital distinction. Okay, now for equality.
Equality means the absence of special privilege for any section of society. It promises adequate opportunity for all, without discrimination. The goal is equality of status and opportunity.
And finally, we reach fraternity. This feels like the most emotional term, the one that's meant to bind us all together.
It is. Fraternity means a feeling of common brotherhood, of oneness, a sense of belonging to the country. And in the preamble, it assures two very specific things.
Which are?
It assures the dignity of the individual, the non-negotiable worth of every single citizen, and second, the unity and integrity of the nation. That word integrity, as we mentioned, was added in 1976 to strengthen the promise of our nation's indivisibility. So we've gone on quite a journey with the Preamble. We started with Nehru's Objectives Resolution, moved through those intense debates, and saw how the Supreme Court ultimately made the Preamble the unchangeable basic structure of our Constitution.
This deep dive has really shown that the preamble is not just some decorative introduction. It's a living, breathing foundation that defines what India is, a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and what it promises to every citizen through those 9 core objectives.
And you know, it's not a static historical text. It's still being debated today. Just recently, in 2021, a private member's bill sought to amend the preamble again, reigniting the debate over its core ideas. It shows that the heart and soul of the Constitution is a dynamic text that continues to challenge us.
That's a perfect reminder that these principles, social justice, secularism, liberty, are active forces in our lives, shaping our collective choices every single day. In the next part, we will see how Preamble works in real life and how it changes our choices. Welcome back to the deep dive. If you joined us for part 1, we started a journey that took the foundational document of India, the preamble to the Constitution, and began to explore its power not just as, a legal text, but as a moral compass.
That's right. And we decided to call this core value system, this blueprint for life, the Preamble.
Exactly. In the first part, we established that the preamble is, well, it's essentially the nation's deepest foundational value statement. It's the blueprint for the entire structure.
A grand vision, really, of justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity that the nation vows to secure for its people.
And today we are moving beyond the mere words and into the application. We're asking the crucial question for every individual listening. How does this massive national preamble translate into the personal preamble that guides your daily choices?
And how does it define your measure of success? And how it provides the resilience you need to navigate the inevitable struggles of life?
That's the mission today, to take these principles, sovereignty, justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity, which usually feels so academic,
Right, things you hear in a classroom.
and show why they are the moral and operational guide for every young person, every citizen shaping the future.
We will look at real historical struggles, actual legal battles that nearly fractured the foundational text, to understand why strengthening our collective and individual preamble is, well, I think it's the defining civic commitment of our time.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start not just with the Constitution, but with the specific, powerful historical moment that solidified these values, because the preamble was never an afterthought, was it?
Not at all. It was the original promise.
The power of this foundational text comes from the fact that it wasn't something tacked on to the front of the Constitution after all the heavy lifting was done.
No, it was the core statement, the guiding light adopted before the drafting of the articles was even complete.
It's like writing the mission statement and core values of a company before you even start building the product. It sets the entire direction.
Precisely. Its genesis lies in what's known as the Objectives Resolution. And this wasn't just another legal paper, it was the ideological declaration of independence for the nation.
Moved by Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yes, he moved this resolution in the Constituent Assembly on the 13th of December, 1946, articulating the aspirations of a newly free nation.
So this resolution, which laid out all those national goals, ensuring social, economic, political justice, equality of status and opportunity, that became the philosophical scaffolding for the entire Constitution.
Exactly. It was accepted a month later, and though it was slightly refined, it was finally adopted on the 26th of November, 1949. That moment was the nation deciding its fundamental character, what kind of republic India must be.
And the preamble, as it stands today, amended up to July 2024, starts with those powerful words.
Incredibly powerful. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. I mean, it's the ultimate expression of collective choice.
That resolution was a powerful moral commitment. But what's often overlooked, and what I find so fascinating, is that even a commitment this profound had to fight for its legal life.
Oh, absolutely.
For a long time, the preamble's role, whether it was actually integral to the Constitution, was seriously questioned. This really mirrors the struggle we all face when we try to define our personal core values. You have to defend them.
And the initial challenge came quite quickly. In 1960, during the famous Berubari case.
That was about ceding territory, right?
Yes, it dealt with Parliament's power to cede Indian territory, and the Supreme Court made a major ruling. They stated that the preamble was not an integral part of the Constitution.
So, just a preface, a nice introduction.
Essentially, yes. It was viewed merely as a guide to interpreting the rest of the text, but without any binding legal authority of its own.
So the Supreme Court essentially treated the preamble like a beautiful but optional introduction. A nice philosophy, but not enforceable in the same way as the articles. That must have significantly diminished its legal weight.
It did. It suggested that if Parliament wanted to amend the articles, they didn't really need to worry about contradicting the spirit of the preamble. This was a very fragile status for the foundational value statement of a nation.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and where the struggle for legal truth fundamentally changed India's constitutional trajectory.
The game changer.
You were referring to the 1973 Kesavananda Fraternity case.
Yes. This landmark judgment fundamentally reversed the Berubari position. The Supreme Court recognized the preamble as a crucial, integral part of the Constitution. But the most profound element was the introduction of the basic structure doctrine.
The basic structure doctrine, that's the anchor that keeps the entire ship steady, isn't it? Help us understand the radical nature of that doctrine. Why was it such a significant victory for the values in the preamble?
Well, the implications are staggering. It put a check on the ultimate power of a democratically elected body parliament. You see, before 1973, Parliament could theoretically amend anything.
Anything at all.
Anything. If the basic structure doctrine hadn't been established, a future parliament could potentially remove fundamental rights, abolish democratic elections, or dismantle the federal structure, all through a constitutional amendment under Article 368.
Essentially, they could amend the Constitution in a way that destroyed its very character.
Exactly. But the basic structure doctrine, which is primarily rooted in the values articulated in the preamble: justice, liberty, secularism, democracy, it declared that even if Parliament amends the Constitution, the core preamble cannot be destroyed or altered.
Wow.
It's the ultimate defense mechanism for the integrity of the original foundational commitment. It ensures the nation remains true to the values it first vowed to uphold.
The lesson here for our personal preamble is so profound. Your core values must be non-negotiable. They must be the basic structure of your life, impervious to external pressures or fleeting trends or changing circumstances. That sense of permanence gives life stability.
And that legal stability was confirmed again. In the 1995 case of Union Government versus LIC of India, the court once again affirmed definitively that the preamble is an integral part. The struggle for the legal status of the values was won.
Now that we know the preamble is the basic structure, let's look at the philosophical core that B.R. Ambedkar gave us, a philosophy that serves as the perfect personal definition of preamble. He spoke about the critical interconnectedness of liberty, equality, and fraternity.
His statement is the philosophical heart of the document. He stated that liberty, equality, and fraternity are principles of life that, and this is the key, cannot be divorced from each other. They must exist in a perfect trinity.
Because if you prioritize one while neglecting the others, the whole system just fails.
It collapses. And he broke down the consequences of this failure perfectly, which is exactly what happens when people break their preamble in real life, prioritizing their own freedom at the expense of others.
So what was his logic?
His logic is crucial for understanding ethical success. He argued that without equality, liberty would produce the supremacy of the few over the many.
Right.
Imagine a society or even a highly competitive professional field where everyone is free to pursue their goals. That's liberty. But only a tiny fraction starts with generational wealth, elite education, or inherited social connections.
A total lack of equality.
Yes. In that scenario, the liberty of the privileged only serves to formalize and amplify their advantage, allowing them to exploit the lack of opportunity of the majority.
So liberty becomes a tool for exploitation, not empowerment. It creates entrenched privilege. That is the real-life consequence of a broken preamble on a national scale.
Precisely. And the reverse is equally problematic. He said that equality without liberty would kill individual initiative.
Stagnation.
Leads to stagnation. If the state or society attempts to forcibly equalize outcomes, say, economically, but suppresses the freedom to think, to innovate, to dissent, or to express unique ideas, you crush the engine of progress and creativity.
You get forced uniformity.
At the expense of human dignity and growth. And finally, the essential glue, fraternity. He noted that without fraternity, liberty and equality could become merely a natural course of things, not cherished values.
What does that mean exactly, a natural course of
It
things?
means they become transactional. Fraternity is the shared emotional commitment to the dignity of every other person. If you grant someone liberty and equality purely because the law dictates it, but you have no emotional bond or respect for them, no fraternity, those rights become cold, fragile.
They can be easily dismissed during a conflict.
Exactly. Fraternity ensures mutual recognition and respect, making rights feel like cherished values, not just temporary entitlements.
This raises such an important question for all of us, for the learner trying to define their path. If your personal choices lack any one of these three, liberty, equality, or fraternity, can your Preamble truly be strong?
Can you claim success if that success is built on suppressing the equality or dignity of others? The answer, according to the preamble, is a resounding no.
So, Section 1 gave us the philosophical core and the legal defense of those values. Now let's look at how the nation chose to define itself by embracing those ideals. The preamble is very explicit, giving us 5 descriptive pillars that define the national character.
Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. These are not just administrative terms, they are identity markers. They tell the world, and more importantly, they tell us who we are.
Let's start with sovereign. It means the independent authority of the state. It signifies having the ultimate, supreme power to legislate on any subject without any external control. This is the assertion of self-rule.
And it's immense power, expressed both internally and externally. Internally, sovereignty means the state is supreme over all individuals and institutions within its territory.
No local power can supersede the republic.
Right. And externally means India is independent of the will of any other state. We are a free actor on the global stage, capable of conducting international relations and making decisions, even the power to acquire or cede territory, without asking permission from any foreign power.
Next up is democratic. This is the ultimate expression of choice in action, the powerful assertion of one person, one vote through universal adult franchise for every citizen 18 years or older. It's the mechanism for political justice.
And this is where we need to dive a little deeper, because the Preamble defines democracy as far richer than just political voting rights. The Supreme Court emphasized this in the Mohan Lal Tripathi versus District Magistrate case.
What did they say?
They define democracy as an ideal which is practiced by many nations via resorting to governance by representative people, directly or indirectly. But what's crucial is the understanding that political democracy choosing representatives must be supported by social and economic democracy.
Right, because political freedom is hollow if the majority remains oppressed socially or economically.
Absolutely. Social democracy seeks to eliminate discrimination and promote equality. Economic democracy aims to reduce glaring inequalities in wealth and opportunity. The underlying goal is to translate political freedom into reducing systemic inequality and saving people from the arbitrary power of tyrannical systems or rulers.
Whether they are political or corporate.
Yes. And this leads us to republic. This is the core belief that public power is not a family heirloom. The head of state, the president, is elected, not a hereditary monarch.
This detail speaks volumes about opportunity.
It does. It means a government where no one holds public power as a proprietary right. Think of the confidence this gives a young person. Every public office, from the highest to the lowest, is open to every citizen without discrimination.
That is the ultimate promise of merit and opportunity. You succeed based on your capability in the democratic process, not based on your family name or inherited title. It ensures that the Preamble of the nation belongs to everyone equally.
Now, we have to address the internal political struggle that tested this definition, the famous 42nd Amendment in 1976.
A huge moment of transformation during the Indian emergency.
Yes, the original text, drafted by the founders, did not explicitly include the words socialist or secular. They were added during a very turbulent, high-stakes period.
So, socialist and secular were inserted between sovereign and democratic, and the phrase unity of the nation was also strengthened to unity and integrity of the nation.
Let's dive into socialist. When many people hear this term, they assume a rigid, centrally planned communist economic model. But the Preamble defines it as something distinct, something much more aligned with Indian socioeconomic reality.
And that nuance is vital for the listener to understand. What is the distinction between this constitutional socialism and, say, rigid state control?
It refers specifically to social democracy achieving socialist goals through democratic, evolutionary, and nonviolent means. You see, the Constitution already included socialist goals in the directive principles of state policy.
Guiding the state towards welfare.
Yes, the 42nd Amendment just made it explicit in the preamble to clarify the nation's core commitment.
So what does this commitment demand of the state and society in practice?
It demands distributive justice. The core philosophy is that wealth, being socially generated through the collective efforts of everyone, should be shared equitably by society, rather than being unfairly concentrated in the hands of a few.
So government regulation of land, resources, industry is intended to reduce socioeconomic inequalities.
And ensure a basic minimum standard of living for all. This principle, the equitable sharing of opportunity and resource, is the societal definition of success, according to the Preamble. A successful society is one where the gap between the richest and the poorest is constantly being minimized.
And then we have secular. This is perhaps one of the most critical words in the Preamble, setting India apart from many other nations that declare a state religion.
Secularism, as enshrined in the Indian context, is unique. It separates the power of the state and religion, yes, but unlike the strict separation model, say, in the U.S., the Indian model is one of equal respect. We often call it Sarva Dharma Sambhava.
So, the state isn't strictly indifferent to religion. Instead, it's obligated to treat all religions equally and support them if necessary, without endorsing any single one as the official faith.
Exactly. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, Christianity, Islam, all are equally respected. There is no state religion, and the state cannot discriminate between citizens on the basis of faith. Critically, citizens are guaranteed the fundamental right to profess, practice, and propagate their religions freely.
It's a positive, proactive form of secularism based on a constitutional commitment to mutual respect.
And just like the basic structure, the judiciary later affirmed the non-negotiable status of secularism.
In which case?
In the 1994 S. Arbamai v. Union of India case, the Supreme Court explicitly held that secularism is part of the basic structure doctrine itself. This means that no political majority, however large, can legally vote to dismantle secularism.
It reinforces the idea that respect for difference is fundamental to the nation's survival, making it a critical component of our collective Preamble. When we look at the history of the Preamble, it's clear that establishing foundational values, whether for a nation or an individual, is not a simple, clean process. It involves intense internal conflict and real struggles against popular sentiment. Let's explore some of the initial contentious choices made during the Constituent Assembly debates.
These debates are fascinating because they show us the early attempts to break or heavily influence the core Preamble. For instance, there was a serious vocal argument put forth by some members to rename India the Union of Indian Socialist Republics.
An explicit attempt to imitate the structure and naming convention of the USSR, which was a powerful ideological force at the time.
Right, but this suggestion was rejected. The founding members, influenced by leaders like Ambedkar and Nehru, understood that adopting an imitation would undermine the unique democratic and liberal goals India was setting for itself.
So they consciously filtered out a globally popular but ultimately contradictory model.
They chose a unique indigenous democratic path instead. That was a very high-stakes decision.
And the debates got intensely emotional when discussing foundational morality and faith. There was a huge struggle over including the names of God and Gandhi in the preamble itself.
This illustrates the immense emotional struggle over deciding on a universal preamble. The inclusion of God was put to a vote, a dramatic moment in the assembly, and it was defeated by a significant margin.
Why was that?
The framers realized that including a reference to any specific deity or even a general divine authority would fundamentally undermine the secular universal nature of the Constitution, which was intended to govern all citizens regardless of their faith or lack thereof.
And the immediate reaction from Hari Vishnu Kath, one of the members who supported the inclusion, was intensely dramatic. I remember reading his comment.
What did he say?
He said, "This, sir, is a black day in our annals. God save India."
That visceral reaction perfectly captures the pressure and the high stakes. Deciding to keep the preamble secular and philosophically broad required overruling deeply held personal beliefs in favor of a universal, neutral, and inclusive structure.
It's a powerful lesson. True foundational values must serve the collective, not just the deeply held comfort zones of one section of society.
Absolutely.
And the debate around including Gandhi's name was equally fraught. Many would assume the father of the nation's name would naturally be there, Yet it was rejected.
It was. One member, Brajeshwar Prasad, strongly disapproved of including Gandhi's name. His reasoning was remarkably brutal and honest.
He said the Constitution was rotten. Right?
Yes, he felt it derived too much of its framework from the British-era Government of India Act and interpretations of the American Supreme Court, and thus, it was not truly Gandhian in its spirit.
He didn't mince words. He said he didn't want Gandhi's name dragged in the rotten Constitution. It speaks to the integrity of the founding members that they allowed such stinging self-criticism and didn't succumb to what might have been politically easy hero worship.
These historical debates prove that establishing a clear preamble requires painful choices, and filtering out ideas that, though popular or emotionally appealing, might contradict the core principles of universal liberty and governance.
You have to defend your values from popular sentiment if that sentiment contradicts the integrity of your core structure. And that scrutiny continues today, doesn't it? The Preamble is a living document subject to constant review and challenge. It's never settled.
That's right. For instance, in 2021, Alphonse Kenneth sought to introduce a constitutional amendment bill specifically to amend the Preamble, which faced immediate protest and legislative hurdles. This continuous debate shows that the Preamble is not a dusty artifact.
It requires continuous defense.
And civic commitment from every single generation.
It's also important to remember the sheer artistic integrity behind the physical document itself, which lends dignity to the legal text.
Oh, absolutely. The original Preamble page was designed and decorated by the renowned painter Biohar Ramanohar Sinha, working under Acharya Nandalal Bose at Shantiniketan.
And his signature Ram is there in Devanagari.
Yes, endorsed without alteration. And the beautiful calligraphy was done by Prembahari Narain Razada. This combination of art, law, and philosophy elevates the foundational text far beyond a mere legalistic declaration.
Let's shift our focus to success. If the Preamble is our guide, what is the ultimate measure of a successful society and a successful life? The Preamble is very clear about the core objective. It is justice.
Justice is the metric. It stands for the rule of law, the absence of arbitrariness, and a system of equal rights, freedom, and opportunities for all. A society succeeds when it secures justice. When an individual seeks justice, they align themselves with the core purpose of the nation.
And the Constitution breaks this down into three crucial dimensions that we must secure for all citizens. This translates perfectly into the three dimensions of ethical, personal, and professional conduct.
First, we have social justice. This means the absence of socially privileged classes. It demands that the state and citizens must not discriminate against anyone based on caste, creed, color, religion, gender, or place of birth.
This is the struggle against unfair social choices. It means actively resisting bias. For a young professional, this means ensuring your workplace, your university, or your social circle is truly inclusive, eliminating all forms of exploitation and prejudice.
It requires a personal commitment to fairness. Social justice demands that we, as individuals, recognize systemic inequalities, historical disadvantages, and take steps to actively counteract them.
To ensure that status and opportunity are not dictated by accident of birth.
Yes. Second, economic justice. This ensures no discrimination based on income, wealth, or economic status. This is where the commitment to the socialist principle becomes practical.
It stands for the equitable distribution of wealth and resources, right?
Exactly. It demands the end of monopolistic control, decentralization of economic resources, and securing adequate, fair opportunities for all to earn a dignified living. This is the definition of fair economic opportunity, which is vital for the youth.
That raises a critical point about the tension inherent in the Preamble. If the state uses heavy regulation to enforce economic justice, doesn't that often clash with individual liberty, especially for entrepreneurs and innovators? How does the Preamble resolve that?
That tension is resolved by the fact that the Indian model is democratic socialism. The measures for economic justice must be implemented through democratic constitutional means, respecting fundamental rights. The goal is not the destruction of private enterprise.
But the prevention of exploitation.
Precisely. It seeks to balance individual liberty to succeed with the societal responsibility to ensure no one is left behind.
And finally, political justice.
This secures equal, free, and fair opportunities for participation in the political process. It includes equal political rights without discrimination. The liberal democracy provided by the Constitution guarantees that every person, regardless of their background, has the right to vote, run for office, and influence the direction of the country.
This is the right to influence your own Preamble and the nation's future.
Exactly.
Now, achieving justice requires the operation of liberty. The Preamble promises liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. This ensures the freedom of Indian nationals' activities.
Liberty is the engine of creativity and personal development. It means there are no unreasonable restrictions placed on you regarding what you think, your manner of expression, and how you choose to follow up your thoughts in action. This is the critical freedom necessary for a vibrant society where innovation and dissent can flourish.
But this is where the famous nuance comes in, and it's a critical lesson for young people navigating social media and public life. Liberty does not mean the freedom to do anything.
An absolutely vital distinction, and one that is often misunderstood. Constitutional liberty must be exercised within the constitutional limits. For example, your freedom of expression does not extend to incitement to violence, defamation, or acts that undermine public order or morality.
So the Preamble defines freedom not as absolute license, but as disciplined choice guided by the overall foundational values.
Precisely. Your personal freedom ends where the nation's basic structure, which includes the dignity and safety of others, begins to crack. If your choice harms the equality or fraternity of others, it is not constitutionally protected liberty.
It's self-centered license.
Right. And the ability to self-regulate and make disciplined choices is the core of a strong personal preamble.
When we talk about building the future, particularly for the younger generation, securing opportunity is paramount. That brings us to equality.
Equality is the bedrock for personal and professional success. When we talk about equality in the preamble, we are talking about two primary things. First, the absence of special privilege for any section of society.
And second.
Second, the provision of adequate opportunity to all individuals without any discrimination.
This directly addresses the aspirations of the learner, someone who values fair opportunity. If the national preamble is upheld, then success should be achievable through effort, talent, and merit, not through inherited status, family connections, or social favoritism.
It guarantees equality of status and of opportunity. Think of it as ensuring a truly level playing field in education, employment, and public life. This commitment is essential for fostering a competitive, ethical, and merit-based society where potential is not wasted due to systemic barriers.
But the structure, liberty and equality, isn't enough. As Ambedkar noted, you need the emotional glue. You need fraternity.
Fraternity is the unifying force. It is the necessary emotion for the survival of the preamble, the feeling of oneness, of shared citizenship, and a sense of belonging with the country and its people.
It's from a French word, right?
Yes, and in the Indian context, it assures two things that must be maintained simultaneously: the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation.
And we remember that integrity was the word added during the 42nd Amendment in 1976, emphasizing the non-negotiable nature of national cohesion.
That addition was crucial. The framers realized that unity could be merely geographical, but integrity implies a deeper moral and social cohesion. Fraternity is the practical application of recognizing the individual dignity of every person, no matter the background, caste, or language.
And this brings us back to why future generations need a strong preamble, both nationally and personally. If individuals use their liberty to act without respecting the dignity of others, if they break fraternity, the entire carefully constructed structure of liberty and equality just collapses.
You can have perfect laws granting freedom and equal rights, but if people lack the emotional commitment to respect those rights in their neighbor, those laws become ineffective. Look at polarization today, the toxicity online. That is a direct breakdown of fraternity.
It leads to fragmentation, conflict, and the loss of shared societal vision.
Fraternity is the moral prerequisite for all our other constitutional rights to truly function.
We've traced the preamble from its visionary roots in the Objectives Resolution to its legal defense via the Basic Structure Doctrine, through political battles like the 42nd Amendment, and finally to its practical application in defining justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Now, let's synthesize this into a personal preamble for success in modern life.
Your personal preamble is fundamentally defined by how you execute those four vows every single day. How you prioritize justice, how responsibly you exercise liberty, how strongly you champion equality for others, and how deeply you maintain fraternity. These constitutional principles provide a rigid, moral framework for all your decisions.
Can you give us a conceptual grounding for real-life application, especially for those in early career or academic pursuits?
Sure. Think of it this way. When you choose to use your freedom of expression, your liberty, not to spread misinformation or hate speech, but to demand fairness and accountability, which is justice and equality, you are aligning with your preamble.
Okay.
When you enter a competitive environment and fight against the impulse to succeed by undermining a colleague or perpetuating a discriminatory practice, which breaks fraternity and equality, you uphold your Preamble.
We have seen the National Preamble constantly fighting for its existence through legal battles like the stark difference between Barubari, which threatened to minimize its role, and Kesavananda, which anchored it forever. This history is not just dusty records.
No, it's a living blueprint for resilience. The struggle of the Preamble tells us that core values will always be challenged by vested interests, political expediency, and ideological fervor. You must be prepared to defend your personal basic structure daily.
Whether it's against the easy temptation to cut corners or the pressure to compromise your ethical standards for short-term gain.
Exactly. The maintenance of foundational values is never a passive act.
And the beauty of the Constitution is that it doesn't place this responsibility solely on the government, the courts, or the powerful. It starts with a solemn resolution made by we, the people of India. This means the power, the responsibility, and the ultimate authority come directly from us.
It's the ultimate expression of self-determination. The continuous, lifelong effort to secure justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity is not a government mandate. It is a profound civic commitment that defines individual character. It is the individual promise we give to ourselves and to the future generation to maintain the dignity and integrity of the whole.
We have seen how the preamble, the Preamble, is more than just text. It's a dynamic, powerful statement about dignity, opportunity, and unity. It provides the essential framework for individual success and national cohesion.
It reminds us that our rights and freedoms are deeply interwoven with our duty to respect the freedom and dignity of others. Just as B.R. Ambedkar articulated, we cannot divorce liberty, equality, and fraternity without undermining the entire enterprise. They rise and fall together in your life and in the life of the nation.
This deep dive reveals that whether you are a student, a professional, or an activist, aligning your choices and actions with these core values, your personal Preamble, is how you contribute to a successful, integrated future for yourself and your nation.
The Constitution starts with we, the people, reminding us that the blueprint for success and freedom is giving to ourselves, to interpret and uphold every single day.
And when you respect your Preamble, life starts respecting you back.